First thing we got to do is get this strip off of here, and in the factory they had a machine that threw staples in these felt strips that went right through the metal and everything, so they're in there really tight. So what I like to do is, we're not going to replace them with staples, we're going to replace them with these small number 4 sheet metal screws. So what I like to do is just cut these staples in half, and it makes it a little bit easier to get these staples out of there. So I'll use my little Dremel grinder and just cut each one in half. Once you got those in half, then I'll pry them up a little bit. And like I say, they're really tight in there. And they don't just pull out like you would a regular staple. And so what I like to do is, once I've got that up a little bit, I like to try to pry this off of the garnish molding so that you have access to those staples underneath. So that's that one. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, I like to keep this intact as much as possible, because the strips that you get, the new strips, are longer than what you need. So I like to get this, or keep this, in fairly good shape so that you can get a measurement and also the curvature that's on the end. Then the next thing we got to do is get these staples out of the way. So what I usually do is cut these off right here, and generally they'll come right out the bottom side. They're curled in like a regular stapler on the bottom side, so they're kind of hard to get out. Sometimes you can just get up under there and pull them out. That one did. But being as they're shot through raw metal, a lot of times they're really tight, but these are cooperating. So I'll just try to pull these out rather than cutting the tops off. Okay, now that we got that out, we've got to get this thing measured and curled on the end, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. Now what I want to do is put the curvature on this new strip, and I'll use this old one to kind of give me a guide on how, where to go with it. So these new strips have a stainless steel bead on them that will move if you're careful, and you won't crimp them. Now I've got a lot more material here than I need, because I'm doing the later vent window type garnish moldings, so I can go anywhere in this area and get this bend in. But basically what you do is you just kind of use your thumbs, and if you do it carefully like this, you'll notice the bead is slipping out in here, and that's what you want to see, so that you don't crimp it in here where you're doing your bend. So I just very carefully get that bend in there, and then kind of compare it to the original and see if you're in the right area. Once you get the bend about the same arc as the original, which this is now, then we can move on to the next step. Now, you can mark this felt strip end to end before you take it off, and that's usually a good idea. I just didn't think about it, so I put it back on here where the staples were and marked the end here and the end there. And then there's a little tab sticking out the end that goes in behind your felt channel, the felt channel that goes down into the door, and I guess that's just to kind of help it to keep from coming out. So we'll do that last, but right now we want to get this cut to size. So I'll get this strip straightened out a little bit more. Put it up in here, and it looks like I need a little bit more bend here. So I'm going to carefully just give it a little bit more bend. That looks pretty good right there. So I'm going to use a pair of diagonal pliers to cut this off. And on this end, I'll just mark the stainless steel bead with my felt marker, my Sharpie. Get it in where we need to be. And I'll just put a little mark right there. And I'll cut this part off. I like to use these crescent diagonal pliers because they're a compound plier and they really make cutting this stuff a whole lot easier. So I need to mark this side now, and I'm going to mark two areas here: the part that I'm going to cut off the felt area, and then the part that I'm going to cut off the little extension tab. So I'll get in here. Now where I'm cutting the felt part, I don't want to cut the stainless steel bead. I'm going to give this just a little bit more bend here. Okay, check that. That looks good. So I'm going to go up to the stainless steel bead and make a diagonal cut, which is basically vertical to the window here. And I'm going to cut through that. Once you've got that cut, then I'll come to the little tab area and cut it completely off. Oops. And then once you've got this all cut and cut off, this should slip out of that beaded area. Of course, I've kind of crimped the bead now, so it's going to make it a little bit more difficult. There. Now what I want to do is take this over to an anvil and just flatten it out. Because that's the way the original was. It was just flattened out to go in behind the felt channel. So I'll do that and I'll be back in a second. I just want to give you a quick demonstration about cutting these channels off the way I did just a bit ago. Basically what you want to do is mark where you want to cut the felt and then mark where you want to cut the little end tab. Once you've got that marked, you go in with the pliers and just cut up to the bead, not including the bead. So you just cut that. Once you've got it snapped, this piece will pull out of there. So now you can just take this little stainless bead and hammer it down flat on a metal table or an anvil or something like that. And once you've got that flattened out, then you're all set. So now what I'm going to do is screw these felt strips into this metal. What I like to use are these little Phillips head self-drilling screws. They're a flathead, so when they go down in, they will sink down below the nap, and that way it doesn't scrape your window when you're rolling it up and down. So I'll just take it in like this, get the bead up to the top, and this makes it a real simple operation. You got to get it started. Once you get it pretty much started drilling, and that's all there is to it. That puts that one in. I like to put them in every 4 to 6 inches just to keep them square. So the next one, I'll just make sure I get the bead up to the top. And I'll probably put 4 in this strip. In the earlier trucks, the strip's longer, so obviously you'd put more in. And it almost disappears when you get it down in the nap, which is really nice. I got these screws on eBay. I believe they're a number 6 by 3/8 of an inch, I believe, are the ones that I bought. But you can get them on eBay, and they're fairly cheap. You get 100 at a time. So I'll put one more in here. And you can see that they almost disappear once you get them down in there. And one more right at the end. And that's it. This piece is secured and ready to go back in.